Welcome into HogvilleNET YouTube Hoops. I'm Kevin McPherson, your host. We had planned on doing a live post game last night in Memphis. I was in M-Town, the Bluff City, covering the Arkansas Razorbacks against Memphis, the 14th ranked Hogs, in that charity exhibition game. Man, what an exciting game. The fan bases were represented almost evenly, it looked to me from my perspective. Really good turnout. What a great game, but it was already a late start, 8 o'clock, and then it actually tipped closer to 8:30. And then this was a game that had something like 55 fouls called. The two teams shot, I think they combined for 73 free throw attempts. So it was a long game on top of being a 30 minutes late start off what was already a late start. Long story short, by the time we got to the post game presser with players, coaches, and then I agreed to do a spot with Fox 16 Sports, and that took a while. It was 12:30, and I decided not to go live that late. I've done it before around midnight. I just decided not to get back to Little Rock, and we do more today, spend more time on it. Plus, we've got recruiting updates, and so I'm glad actually that there's a bit of a delay. So I spent all that time explaining the setup here. The Arkansas Razorbacks faced adversity, fell behind by 15 points, overcame that to close and pull basically within even at halftime. A mini spurt in the first minute of the second half. Arkansas back down by 9 points, but the Razorbacks outscore Memphis by 33 points, 57-24 in the final 19 minutes to close this out with an impressive 24-point victory. Yes, charity exhibition game, but you look at what Arkansas did to Cincinnati at home against Bud Walton Arena, where that was basically a wire-to-wire, horn-to-horn dominance. This game a little different, and the adversity was probably a good thing. John Calipari said it was. He said it last year after Arkansas went on the road after beating number one Kansas at home in an exhibition game. Go on the road, similar to this setting with Memphis in Memphis against TCU in Fort Worth last year. Arkansas built a double-digit lead and lost that game. This time around, Arkansas had to overcome an early double-digit deficit and found a way to not only win, not only to make the game close and give itself a chance, but it ran away from these Memphis Tigers. So there's positives in more way than one. You exerted you willed your way and became a dominant team, not just a winning team. And you combine the effort last night and the final result with the final result against Cincinnati on Friday night at Bud Walton Arena. Arkansas won the two exhibition games by a combined average margin of 26 points per game. 28-point win over Cincinnati after leading by 35. 24-point win, and I believe that was the largest lead for Arkansas against Memphis, and that's the final margin, 99-75. And again, there's multiple takeaways from this. I think the big thing is, again, is you didn't come out with. I thought Arkansas was sleepwalking a little bit. I'm going to credit a Memphis team who, in the pregame, I said a lot of veteran guys. It's a brand new roster, literally. I mean, they didn't have one returnee, and most of that's out of the transfer portal. I went through most of the names. I cited only one player, a big man who didn't play, by the way. It was a freshman. Everybody else transfers either from the mid-major or some high-major level. We went through some of the top players that Memphis might have, but I said, look, this feels like a team that's not going to be near what last year's Memphis team was able to accomplish, and that Arkansas should be able to go out and be a dominant performer and win the game. That was my projection. That's what happened in the end, and really most of the second half, Arkansas was just head and shoulders above. Up until that point, it was fairly even. It was back and forth, and again, Arkansas was doubled up in the score. I think at one point it was 29-14, so it was a 15-point lead. And Memphis at that point had more than doubled up Arkansas on the scoreboard in the first half there. And then Arkansas gets on a run. So we're going to talk about what changed the game, what impacted the turnaround, all those things we're going to get to. And then we've got some recruiting updates, some stuff we need to pay attention to. Certainly need to pay attention to this close to the early signing period. November 12th through the 19th is how that runs. So you're getting awfully close to that. We know Arkansas has had a ton of visitors, and Arkansas now has reached out to a player that's become available out of the high school ranks that was committed elsewhere. We're going to talk about all that. He's pictured here in the corner. You see the bench mob in the one photo. Those are photos I've pulled from the University of Arkansas men's basketball program's Twitter page and kind of put them together there. But it was Arkansas's bench mob. what do we say all the time? You talk about overcoming adversity. It was Arkansas's bench in this game that put the best foot forward first for the team, and it took a while for the others, the main retention part of it, to come around. And better late than never. But we're going to get through what happened here, because I think when you look at what we say all the time and have been saying for months, 1 through 8, the top part of the rotation, Arkansas's got starter value everywhere. It's basically having 8 starters. And you had 3 guys that came off the bench, and thank goodness you had them. Malik Thomas, who, let's face it, he's been Arkansas's best player in the exhibition season. He just has. Even if you go back and add the 40-minute scrimmage, Arkansas playing Arkansas down in Hot Springs, that's the toughest competition Arkansas's faced so far, is playing itself. You add up what Malik Thomas did down in Hot Springs to what he's done here in these 2 exhibition games against other opponents, he comes out on top. And last night he certainly was. And it's not just about his shooting and offense. We're going to talk more about that. But guys like Malik Euan playing off the bench, certainly Billy Richmond III in his hometown, those were your 3 guys that didn't, out of your top 8 rotation, who didn't start the game. And we've seen Calipari have a different starting lineup to begin second halves in these 2 exhibition outings. But to start games, these guys have come off the bench, and thank goodness you had them, because all 3, their contributions when they got into the game immediately helped to start turning the tide for Arkansas, because the starting group really struggled at both ends, and not only with not being able to finish shots, a lot of missed layups and a missed dunk, but just some poor decision making, I thought, on how to deal with Memphis's pressure defense. What Calipari likes to say, they jump and trap. The full court press they threw on Arkansas that the Hogs struggle with. But you had guys come off the bench that helped solve some things. So let's get right into that. Let's start with the fact that when Malik Thomas came into the game, the 6'5" freshman guard, it was interesting early because Arkansas was trying to drive the basketball, guys like Darius Akuff, DJ Wagner, Trevor Brazile to some level, Carter Knox, and just weren't having success. They missed several layups on shots that some of these guys normally would make. And then you had Trevor Brazile miss a layup and a dunk. So Arkansas was out of sorts. And I thought Memphis, threw the first flurry of head and body shots that Arkansas slowly responded to, just didn't return fire in kind. And so Memphis was getting the hustle plays. Memphis hits a couple of threes early, gets on the offensive glass, gets to the free throw line because they were playing the more physical brand of basketball, and it paid off. And then throwing that full court pressure and getting some turnovers and some easy scores. So, again, Arkansas falls behind 15. Malik Thomas comes in, and something interesting happened. 2 interesting things happened. You're down 15. And Arkansas didn't really have an offense to that point, anything, again, that was working. Yeah, they were getting some drives they should have finished and didn't. And all of a sudden, Thomas comes in, and the script flipped a little bit, and you became a catch and shoot offense with Thomas taking the shots. And he had multiple possessions where he took multiple threes, and he hit 3 of them. He started like 3 of 5 from 3. The problem was, on the other end, Memphis was still finding ways to score. So even though Thomas came in and hit a couple of threes and tried to spark Arkansas, it was 34-20. They were still down 14. And now Arkansas's offense was simply 1 or 2 passes, catch and shoot, Malik Thomas taking a 3. And you went from the strength of your team, which is slash and get to the rim, which hadn't worked to that point. And now you're wondering, okay, if you're done probing and this is going to be your offense, as good as Malik Thomas is, and he took 15 shots and scored 23 points game high and ended up 3 of 7 from 3, but as good as he is, if this is your offense and what you're falling back on the rest of the game, give him 30 shots, and let's say he doubles up, makes 6 or 7 threes, he has a great night, Arkansas probably loses. But they had to have something to start clicking, somebody to prove that they were ready to come in and score and give Arkansas a lift offensively. So it was kind of a double-edged sword initially. I don't want to over-explain that, other than it was good to see someone come in with the confidence to take shots, and he made them. But at the same time, Arkansas's strength is getting the basket. It's getting out in transition. It's generating free throw attempts. And to that point, Arkansas just had muddled in the dark. They just didn't have anything. And now their best answer was launching threes. And so that's only going to carry you so far. The good news is Malik Thomas did a bunch of other stuff. Let's go through his final stat line first and then talk about the impact he had in this game. 23 points, game high. He had the game high in the previous exhibition game against Cincinnati, 18 points. 9 of 15 overall from the field, very efficient. 3 of 7 from three, efficient. 2 of 4 at the foul line. You need him to be better than that. But look, the guy, that's probably the only complaint you have. Another game high in rebounds. He had it against Cincinnati, he had it here. Now, 3 Hogs ended up with 7 rebounds, but he matched some of the frontline guys, Malik Thomas did, with 7 boards. He had a game high 4 steals. This dude was making plays defensively. He had another lockdown on Curtis Gibbons III, a veteran guard transfer from LSU, out on the perimeter. He didn't get a steal, but he forced Gibbons to make a mistake and dribble the ball out of bounds. Lost the ball, lost control of the ball, it went out of bounds. Near the left side of the court, just inside the half court line. So Malik Thomas was making plays defensively, but he also had 4 assists in this game. He did a good job to find a better shot when their better shot was there. Something very interesting also about Malik. So we went through his stat line. He also was a box score plus 25 and ended up playing 32 minutes. So when I say starter value, that's proof in the pudding, not just the production, the impact. Sometimes you can have empty stats. None of his were empty. Everything he did helped Arkansas turn this thing around and got Arkansas going, got something going. And I make the comparison, and this is going to make some folks wonder what I'm talking about here initially, to Devo Davis as a true freshman. Devo was not near the offensive talent or overall talent that Malik Thomas is. But if you remember Devo playing off the bench, he would come in and his energy and his impact on certain things where Arkansas was struggling at the time, whether it was, getting deflections on defense or maybe getting a steal and getting the transition game going. And then everybody else kind of fed off of that. And that's what Malik is. He comes in, he's talking to himself, he's rallying the team, he's super excited about everything, but he's playing a really good brand of basketball, so that's not lost in the shuffle. The fact that he's demonstrative. If you're not producing and you're inefficient, you're wondering what's going on here. Again, Devo, a much different kind of player, but that same impact as a true freshman coming in with the stones. You know what I'm saying? To say, hey, I got this. And some of the older guys are, guys that have been around, maybe kind of clunking along, and all of a sudden they pick up their intensity. They pick up, and if you want to compare style-wise someone to this current team to a Devo Davis, it's Billy Richmond, a bigger and better version, and also brings energy and was also making plays in this game. We're going to get to him. So there's more than one comparison there, but I think the Malik Thomas one is a good one in terms of just being a spark, whatever the strengths are, being a spark. And he was doing it everywhere. I just went through the stats. Defense, on the glass, scoring beyond just the three-point shooting. He didn't take a whole lot of threes after that stretch where he went 3 of 5. He only took 2 more the entire game. In fact, Arkansas shot 11 threes in the first half. He had and made 4. He had 3 of those. Second half, Arkansas cut that down nearly in half. Only 6 3-point attempts. They made 2. The point is that Arkansas as a team needs to play to its strength. And again, that's get downhill, and Malik Thomas was a part of that as well. He cast in steals for transition finishes and a dunk. A couple of dunks he had in this game. He had a nice little runner. He had a nice read after knocking. When you have a guy that can keep the defense honest and they're worried about your three-point game, he had some plays in the second half where the ball came out to him beyond the arc. Defense closed hard, a little ball or fake or hesitation. Then he read the help defense and stepped the right ways, made passes off of that. He had a nice runner off one of those plays. This dude looks like a veteran mentality for a true freshman right now because he's got the talent. He's a top 10 rated 5-star coming in. So you know that already about Malik Thomas. We've spent a lot of time just on him. How about Billy Richmond III, his hometown in Memphis, the 6'6" wing sophomore, comes off the bench and he starts doing what he does. It's almost hard to define him as a position and positionally simply because he can guard any backcourt spot. He can wreak havoc on some bigs when situations comes where they have to meet in the paint. And then he's just quirky and hard to deal with in the way that he gets to the basket. Getting from the wing down, and then he hits threes last night. We saw that he was trying to add that to his game late in the regular season last year, and you were wondering. We heard throughout the offseason that he had improved. Um, he had improved as a 3-point shooter, and we saw a better looking shot when we were in the building in July, early July, for that hour long practice. We didn't really see that perimeter shot show up when we saw the little limited stuff at the prime time at the Palace. It wasn't defended. The pro day, then you turn around and then it's down in Hot Springs, and he didn't do a whole lot offensively. But the shot, 2 of 3 from three, 13 points. And look, the guy, when you look at 2 block shots, they were big. Just really making those hustle plays along with Malik Thomas. And you're talking about Billy Richmond third playing off the bench. He ended up, I think, finishing with 3 rebounds, had an assist, had a steal. He did a little bit of everything. But Billy Richmond third was one of the players that when you saw Memphis landing the blows early, it was guys like Malik Thomas and Billy Richmond III coming in, and they start landing blows of their own. Whereas the Arkansas group that started the game weren't up to par to that point, and they needed some help being shown the way. And that's what happens when you have a really good team and you have that quality depth. Is that some nights it's off for some guys, for a while it's off, or maybe the whole game, and other guys get it going, and then you feed off of that. Arkansas's best teams have been like that. You go back to the Nolan Richardson days; they went 10 or 12 deep. It was a different style of basketball, a different era. But oftentimes it was just somebody different. Yeah, you had great players like Corliss Williamson, Scotty Thurman, Corey Beck as the head of the monster. But at the end of the day, you had a lot of other guys. And sometimes those guys were off for extended periods of times. Your top three, and it was others that stepped up. And you're seeing qualities, even though this doesn't run as deep, goes 8. There's some similarities here where there's not a lot of drop off anywhere. And you could argue Arkansas had drop off in the starting 5, and it was the bench that brought the elevated play and kind of picked everybody up. But Billy Richmond III was huge. I thought the other guy off the bench, it was obvious, Malik Euan. And he was a guy in this game. He struggled against Cincinnati. We talked about it when we recapped that effort, and we said, he struggled offensively. He looked a little bit slow relative to the pace of play and what was going on. And I said, I have no worries about this. This guy is a supreme offensive player. And that is so true. I mean, he's still going to be a work in progress defensively. But what really stood out to me from Malik Euan were a couple of things. One was his offensive rebound. And we said all along, in 25, 26 minutes at Florida State, averaging nearly 15 points per game, what also stood out was his rebounding. 7.5 rebounds per game. And of that, about 3, a little over 3 of those were offensive rebounds. So we've talked a lot about how Arkansas being better offensive rebounding team just because of him. All 4 of his offensive rebounds, or all 4 of his rebounds were on the offensive glass against Memphis. That is significant because that's one of the areas Arkansas early in the game was struggling with. Memphis was getting second chance opportunities, almost doubling up Arkansas on second chance opportunities. As good as Arkansas was against Cincinnati, wire to wire, that was another area where the team struggled. -8 in offensive rebounds. Arkansas shot it well from the field, so it's a little misleading, but it's not because you gave up 15 offensive rebounds to Cincinnati. And it was trending that way in the first half, but a guy like Malik Euan comes in and gives Arkansas a shot in the arm on the offensive end, and gives Arkansas second chance opportunities to get more points and sustain those possessions. And keep Memphis off the offensive end. And then he scored. One of the things Arkansas has shown in 2 games so far, it's a poor free throw shooting team. And so the other thing that stood out to me was kind of I said it was the offensive rebound, and I said there were 2 things. The other thing was, and it's also offense because that's the strength of Euan's game, his back to the basket, throw it down low to him. That's the one guy, and I've said this. When Calipari mentioned a couple of times recently that you're a fraud without a low post game, and that he had a lot of questions about Arkansas, I said, look, the best bet here for Arkansas to have that and excel there is not going to be Trevor Brazile. He's not a low post player. Nick Pringle's a low interior player. That's where the strength of his game is. But he's not really a guy you're going to be playing through down low and let him go to work. That's just not the strength of his game. He's more of an opportunistic, put back kind of guy, lob threat, that kind of thing. That Euan's the guy that can cook. He can do it for handling the ball, going from the perimeter, getting it low, or you can throw it low. Arkansas posted him up in this game in both halves, and he had success both as a scorer, just turning and willing to really good finishing angles for layups, rim running down the paint for a dunk, but he also had a low block. Ball was entered to him, and he quickly turned and passed opposite side for an open 3-point shot. One of the Billy Richmond the third make. So Euan is a weapon in the low block in more ways than one. And what happens when you get in the paint, whether you're slashing and driving in, or if you play a low post game? That's where you're going to everybody. That's where the defenses start to collapse and help, and where all the bodies get congested. And next thing you know, there's a foul. There's contact. That's where you're going to get most of your action in terms of getting fouled and getting to the free throw line. And Euan made the most of that. He ended up with 7 free throw attempts. This is an Arkansas team that's shown in both games shooting in the 60s, 60% dead on the button against Cincinnati. Last night a little better, 68 plus. But that's not going to cut it when you play better competition and you're in close games all the way to the end. Arkansas is going to have to improve there, but at least Malik Euan did his part. So he was such a force, as a passer and finisher down low against Memphis, but he also made Memphis pay when they fouled him. 7 of 7 at the foul line. So these 3 guys off the bench, you look at the blue collar part of it, not just the 3-point shooting early by Malik Thomas, but the steals, the blocks. I mean, Billy Richmond at 6'6", getting a couple of blocks. Malik Euan had a block in this game. So I can't say enough about the bench. Arkansas's bench outscores Memphis more than 2-1, 51-25. As a team, Arkansas was plus 20 points in the paint against Cincinnati. Just dominant, 44-24 on Friday. And though it was at halftime, Arkansas, it was much more close against Memphis, 20-14, and Memphis held a 3-point lead. Arkansas dominated the final 20 minutes in the paint. Finally began forget the 3-point shooting. Let's just impose our will, put our heads down and get to the basket. And that's what Arkansas did, whether it was transition, half court. It's what they did throughout against Cincinnati, the Hogs. And it's what they ended up doing in this game, plus 30. They took their plus 20 against Cincy and they raised it 10. Plus 30, 56-26. Arkansas really struggled early with turnovers. At one point, Arkansas had 8. A lot of that was due to Memphis' full court press. And then the Tigers, I think it was plus 6 at one point. Arkansas had 8 turnovers, Memphis only 2. End of the game, Arkansas minus only 1, 14-13. So Arkansas was much better, especially in the second half, of forcing turnovers and taking care of the basketball. So you're minus 1 in turnovers, but in points off turnovers, this is what good teams do. They capitalize on the other team's mistakes. Arkansas was much better overall, scoring off turnovers, 20-9, more than doubled up, plus 11. What Memphis was able to do, even though Memphis committed, again, in the totality of the game, 1 fewer turnover. Memphis off to a fast start in the turnover battle and getting some easy scores early off the press. But when you look at the totality of the game, Arkansas flipped the script in a big way. It was substantial. Second chance points, it was 2-1 at halftime for Memphis, 9-5, effectively 2-1. And Memphis was plus 2, or had an advantage on the offensive glass. At the end of this game, Memphis had only a plus 2 advantage on the offensive glass, 12-10. And the second chance points, which a lot of that comes off of those offensive rebounds, second chance points ended up being even. And so that was a place where Arkansas, as good as it was against Cincinnati, didn't do so well. And the first half was trending almost the same against Memphis. They flipped that script in the second half. A lot of that was Malik Euan getting on the offensive glass. You look at Malik Thomas, and we talk about his 6 defensive rebounds, but he also had an offensive rebound. Billy Richmond had an offensive rebound. Nick Pringle had an offensive rebound. Carter Knox did. So did Trevor Brazile. So you had everybody kind of pitching in, but the one in high volume there, Malik Euan, all 4 of his rebounds on that offensive end. We mentioned the bench scoring fast break. It felt like Arkansas had an advantage here. The final stats, so 21-18 with plus 3 for Arkansas. The Hogs were plus 3 in fast break at halftime. So it basically was pretty even. But I think what the problem is in fast break scoring, what they're not charting are those secondary transition points. So although they're not fast break, and I talk about it all the time, Arkansas, because of the pace it's playing at offensively, they're getting some easier scores in their half-court set because the defense hasn't gotten set yet. They may have gotten back in ahead of across midcourt, and you didn't score ahead of that in true transition, but you're getting some shots that's not really the from the framework and some buckets that's not truly part of the framework of your half court offense. More about identifying advantages before the defense gets fully set, and especially late in the game when Arkansas tried to run initially. Maybe they didn't get that transition dunk or layup, but it was one or two passes before Memphis was really in position, and they struck with a hard drive and get to the basket. So that secondary transition, and that's why I always throw in the caveat: whatever these final fast break numbers are, they're not a real clear picture of how Arkansas really capitalized in a secondary transition framework. It's something this team's going to have to continue to do, I think, because there's just not an answer for it. Arkansas is built for this. They're built to get to the basket. It's nice that they're a better 3-point shooting team. 40% or so it seems so far. 40% against Cincinnati, 35 plus percent against Memphis. You're going to take that. That's not bad. But the volume, that's the key here. And I think Arkansas attempted 23s against Cincinnati, shrunk that down last night to 17. And again, you thought they might be on a pace to take a whole lot more because they didn't have a lot of answers in their slash game. They were missing layups, missed a dunk. Memphis was more physical. Memphis was doing a good job in its press defense. And then Thomas comes in. Next thing you know, Arkansas just became a 3-point shooting team for a little bit. He hit 3 of them. I know I'm kind of wearing that out. I think it's interesting sometimes that there's good and bad. More than one thing can be true at the same time. It was good that Arkansas had a spark and someone to get them going. But if that was going to be the what their offense was going to have to slink into for the rest of the game, that was not going to be a formula to win. But Malik brought so much to the table. And then let's go ahead and get this. We're going to get to recruiting here in a little bit. We're almost 27 minutes in. I thought both Trevor Brazile and Carter Knox, who had pretty much off, really, I mean, they were just off in the first half. Knox didn't get a lot of shots up, and he made some mistakes. Trevor Brazile again missed a layup, missed a dunk. Didn't have a strong rebounding first half, or not beginning of the game anyway. DJ Wagner, you didn't need his offense against Cincinnati. He had one field goal. He had another, sort of an off night. He had 3 early turnovers. This was a problem for him last year. He missed some layups early, but I thought all 3 of those guys showed well late. They all stepped up. Trevor Brazile, Carter Knox ends up with 10 points, 7 rebounds. So he was one of the 3 rebounding leaders on the night. He also had 4 assists. Now he did have 4 turnovers as well. That was the part with some of the decision making with Knox, but played 27 minutes. Box score plus 32, and we said it in the last game. He led Arkansas in box score plus minus against Cincinnati. He's done that again, and we said it after the Cincinnati game. Adu Thero was that guy last year. He was just almost consistently, until he was hurt and didn't play anymore. He was almost every time, not every time out, but most of the time was your box score plus leader. And that's Carter Knox. For whatever reason, even on an off night, when he's on the court, Arkansas is just better. It's not a misleading thing. It's just the way it is. He got a steal and a block shot in this game. So he did some good things, and most of it came late. He didn't take a lot of shots. That was the point. It wasn't like he was missing shots in the first half. He just wasn't plugged in. I mean, 3 of 4. He's an opportunistic offensive player. You're talking about an all-league caliber potential first-round draft pick in the next draft, but he's not a guy that's a big shot creator. But he picks his spots, and he's efficient. 3 of 4 from the field, 4 of 6 at the foul line. He needs to get better there again. He was an 80% shooter at the foul line last year. I think he was only 3 of 5 against Cincinnati. The trend is not good. Need him to pick that up and get back to what he was last year. But 10 points, 7 boards, 4 assists, a steal and a block. Carter Knox, came correct in the end, and he had to end up with a good stat line. Trevor Brazile, 4 of 9 from the field, misses only 3-point attempt, missed the front end of 1 and 1. Again, free throw shooting, something Arkansas is going to have to correct. Ends up with 7 rebounds. I thought second half he was really good on the glass. 8 total points for TB, and he had 3 block shots. And so Arkansas finishes with 8 blocks, and they had 6 in the first game. This was an area we were concerned with. Arkansas was one of the best shot blocking teams in the country last year, and we thought some of the trade-off with getting better on the glass and getting some other elements, more physicality, was that you didn't see big shot blocking numbers from the portal additions Arkansas got. And then with Brazil, we know he's capable, but then, how consistent he's going to be. Well, first two exhibition games, 3 blocks per game for TB to lead the way. Billy Richmond getting a couple. Carter Knox getting a block and a shot. Malik Euan and Nick Pringle both blocking a shot in this game. Pringle only played 11 minutes, stayed in foul trouble, made both field goal attempts, scored Arkansas's first basket on a lob pass from Darius Akuff Jr., who I haven't even mentioned yet. I can't believe I haven't gone to Akuff yet, but we're going to do that. We're over 30 minutes in. I haven't gotten to Akuff. That's how good this team is. But Pringle only 11 minutes, 5 points, 3 rebounds. One of those was on the offensive glass, and he did block a shot. So, not his night. DJ Wagner finished 2 of 4 from the field in his 28 minutes, made 3 of his 4 free throw attempts. He did hit a 3 late when Arkansas really poured it on. His only 3-point field goal attempt in the game. So 8 points, 4 rebounds, 2 assists, no steals, but he did have the 3 turnovers. And he was a box score plus 17 when he was on the court. The one guy, and I should have talked about Darius Akuff Jr. sooner than now, because I talked about the 3 that really showed well, Arkansas's top 3 performers in this game, coming off the bench, and Malik Thomas, Billy Richmond III, and Malik Euan. And even though some of the Arkansas's retention pieces like Brazil, Knox, and DJ stepped up late, there was hit and miss with Akuff, but I really think that his contribution in this game might be getting overlooked, including by me, because I've waited till after 31 minutes to bring his name up. Darius Akuff Jr., 17 points, not all that efficient shooting from the field, 6 of 16. Part of that was he was 0 for 4 from 3. So if you look at his 2-point field goal shooting, 6 of 12, 50%, that's just fine. 5 of 6 at the foul line. So just like Malik Euan did his job at the line, you like to see Akuff stepping up there and making his 17 points. So once again, the 17 against Cincinnati as well, second on the team in scoring that night. Same thing here. 4 rebounds at the guard spot, but he had 0 turnover. He had a steal as well. 0 turnovers. And 7 assists, a game high assist. That was the case against Cincinnati, game high 4 assists in 2 games, in 2 exhibition games. Akuff, 11 total assists and only 2 turnovers. I think that's being overlooked. Some of his shot quality, some of the shots he attempted on his drives, maybe were in question here against Memphis. I thought a couple of them were just fine. He just missed them early, just failed to convert. And then once he got things going downhill, I mean, everything he got, since he didn't make any threes, was getting to the basket. He didn't really get into his pull-up, mid-range shot game, or little runners and floaters. It was just getting all the way to the rim. I thought, and he had some issues defensively at times as well. But I thought his running the team, assisting was really good. And then once he got going on in his own offense, I thought he was just fine. I actually think his impact was a positive one, and he was third on the team in box score plus not minus. He was plus 19. So shame on me for waiting so long to talk about Darius Akuff. And Calipari, I think had some discussion points with him when he brought him out of the game on some things he wasn't pleased with. But I think overall, Akuff was not only a positive impact on this game, but now in 2 exhibition games, he and Malik Thomas have proven to be Arkansas's best offensive options. I think Malik Euan will have his moments. Certainly more opportunistic scores like Trevor Brazil and Carter Knox. There are nights we know DJ's going to get his. He did it last year. But those 2, I think, consistently, your 2 freshmen are your 2 best offensive players. And when I came out of the pro day, when Arkansas came out of its pro day a few weeks ago, one of the things I said on my reaction show, you can go back and watch that if you haven't seen already or don't remember it. But I talked about 4 guys as best bets right now. You could look at them and see draftable players, some first round, maybe some second. 4 of them if they were to come out and go to the next NBA draft after this season. And the names I went through were Carter Knox, Darius Akuff Jr., Malik Thomas, and Trevor Brazil. I still think that remains the case as of today. But I'm going to throw something else at you. Right now, based on what I've seen, I think Malik Thomas might be Arkansas's top pro candidate in terms of the ceiling. as a first rounder, I'm not ready to say this guy has a lottery a chance at being a lottery pick, but I certainly wouldn't have. I would have probably said something like very unlikely before that he could go lottery, and now I'm just at a point where I can't say that either. I can't say that I see a lottery projection for him, but I can't say that that it seems very unlikely. I can't even do that, and I'm going to tell you why. Because at six he's I don't know what he's going to measure without shoes when he gets to the combine. Maybe 6'4", but you play in shoes. He's 6'5". He's got good length. He's got really good athleticism. He is, and we said all along that of the two true freshmen, that he has potential to be a playmaker on defense because of his instincts and because of his just kind of grit. Even though he's still learning the nuances of position, several things that are going to help him get even better. But he's making so many plays defensively. The fact that he's a strong rebounder at guard, there are a lot of things that translate to the next level. The quick release, he didn't hesitate on some of those pass after he got a pass. And what I liked about him was there's a couple of times where had he made the next pass on the perimeter, he might have had a teammate that was open, but he knows that he's the best option as a three-point shooter because he can do it in volume and be your most efficient. And he knows that because that's what he's been most of his career wherever he's played. And since he's been in Arkansas, they chart that stuff. And what we've seen with our own eyes, whether it was pro day or winning the 3-point contest, he's the best option there. So why would you? So sometimes my point is you make that next pass to a teammate that might be even a little more open than you on the perimeter, but he's the highest percentage guy, and I like his chances with a guy slow, closing maybe a little better than the next defender could on your teammate, but your teammate doesn't shoot the three like you do. Thomas gets that. And that is a pro level mentality. I know I kind of went off on that, but it's just little things that I see in players that I watch. I cover NBA games, and so I see the fit there and how that translates. And it's all now about, is he able to eliminate some of the stuff that's problematic the higher up you go, the extra dribbling, the wasted movement. How do you move off the ball? What are your instincts to get, to get to a finish or make the right read and make a pass? He's showing a lot of maturity right now and all of that stuff, in addition to the talent that allows him to make shots. Sometimes you can see that talent and you're making shots, you're like, that wasn't really a great shot. Or he took 2 extra dribbles. He didn't need that. Yeah, he made the shot. He's really, and Calipari, he talked about him in the post-game presser last night in Memphis, and his first thing he said was to Malik Thomas, "Whoop." He said that multiple times. I asked Calipari a question about something else, and by the time he finished that answer, he went back to Malik Thomas and went back to the Malik Thomas. So, that kind of summed it up. But I think right now, if we're talking pro prospects, he might be Arkansas's best. And I know it's a small sample size of exhibition games, but it's a lot of other stuff covering this young man, including at the grassroots level and seen him play multiple times. And if you remember, at the time that I covered him in Kansas City and interviewed him and put that out on social media, he was talking about Calipari, and that's his guy, and he wants to visit Arkansas. And I was doing these shows, the HogvilleNET YouTubes, even off site when I was in Kansas City. I think I did a couple, and I was talking about how Malik, out of all the top level guys Arkansas was out in, recruiting, and several that I had interviewed and put those out, including AJ DeBonsa, Cam Boozer, just a big group of players. But he was my favorite. It was the swagger, it was the confidence, it was the smile, but it was also just the way he plays. He plays with a real passion. And you just wonder, how does it translate to the next level? I always question, how does his maturity step up for it to translate to being positive most of the time? And it may take a while. Well, so far, and we'll see when things get real, what the carryover is. I think freshmen are going to be up and down. He's not going to be as great as he was last night every night out, but man, these so far, again, scrimmage work down in Hot Springs and these 2 exhibition games. I mean, it's not like you're playing a D2 school. Cincinnati and Memphis, we'll see how good they are. They're not going to be as good as many of the teams in Arkansas's, not those 5 non-conference matchups that we know about. The other mid-major bye games, these 2 teams are probably better than all of those. And then you get in the SEC, we know it's just going to be a lot, and there'll be some roller coaster elements. But guys like him and Darius Akuff to me looks like he's got potential for first round as well. That's been out there. It's been said before. But these two freshmen, man, they've stepped up. And in some ways, I thought they were a little more fearless at times than some of the veteran guys. It took them a while to get comfortable in this game. All right, we're 40 minutes in, and all we've gone through a lot. If there's any negatives really for Arkansas, and you look at the exhibition season, because they did a better job in the blue collar stuff, getting on the offensive glass, limiting the opponent. The turnovers, they've been effectively even. They were +1 against uh, uh, Cincinnati. They were -1 against Memphis. Effectively even. You like the fact that Arkansas doubled up Memphis in points off turnovers, but I think Calipari's pleased because of the pace they're playing and the amount of shots they're getting up and how efficient they are. I mean, they shot 55% against Memphis, 65% in the second half. The 3-point shooting, we went through the numbers, 40% against Cincinnati, nearly 36% against Memphis. All of that's good. The negative on offense are the turnovers. I think it's still a little high. Calipari thinks they're okay, but it's not the total number at the end. It's how you fell behind to begin with. You had a lot early and you didn't handle the press well. So I think it's not just the total amount. I think it's when they came and how they hurt you. Turnovers are never good, but especially live ball turnovers in your on when you're not even cross half court yet, and the defense is running a press, and then they get some easy looks off of that. That's different than dead ball turn. So it's when they come and what kind they are. I still think that's problematic. And then the free throw shooting. Arkansas's been 50+% from the field again, shooting well from three. It's the free throw line. 2 games in a row in the 60s. Last night, you took 37 free throws, attempted 37, and made 25. So 67.6%, better than the 60% against Cincinnati. Not good enough against this gauntlet of a schedule. Memphis took 36 and made 25. Not much better there. Memphis 69.4%. So that helped Arkansas a little bit, but you won by 24. So I think the biggest complaints for me right now are taking care of the basketball, being consistent on that glass, limiting teams' offensive rebounding, and then the free throw shooting. All right, let's get into recruiting real quick. 42 minutes in, we're going to try to wrap this up. Right now, Arkansas is on wait and see mode with several players. Several players that took official visits. You had 7 total. Um, when you start looking at late August through last weekend when Baba Aladat, the 6'10" combo forward, was on your campus. So now you're waiting to see how many of these guys are going to get it done early, how many are waiting to the spring, what other visits should be taken. There's some wait and see mode. I've said for a while that Arkansas's best bets right now, in terms of if you want to say there's a leader, we've said Brandon McCoy Jr., the 6'5", top-rated 5-star guard. Baba Aladat. Arkansas really close on several other players. One of those will get it done early as it's planned now. Arafangiane, the 7'1" center, Iowa United Prep, just took that Houston visit. Arkansas has been really close. But if this thing gets into, because it's a coveted big man and the #1 center, those don't grow on trees. Big man with his skill. NIL could go to a place there, or some of these top 5-rated guards, frankly, that Calipari is not comfortable with and doesn't want to go to. All right. So it's kind of the same stuff. We're in wait and see mode. There's not a lot of change there. Brandon McCoy just did an interview with Jamie Shaw of On3 Sports, and I was able to check out some of the talking points there, and he had positive things to say about several of the teams that have been recruiting him. He's not sure about if he's going to take any more visits, but had good things to say about Arkansas, and of course what we know, Calipari and track record getting guys to the NBA. All right, so if Arkansas is still the leader there, nothing has shifted any of my thoughts about that, but it's not like I feel like Arkansas's got a huge advantage and a big gap kind of lead. I'm not sure the level of it, but I don't have the impression that there's some kind of private or silent commit, and that Arkansas is clearly the leader. It's more about having an edge until you hear otherwise. Baba Aladat, recent intel source telling me that Arkansas is the team to beat. Well, he may take 2 or 3 more visits. He may wait till the spring. And I even said, if that's the case, what's the point in talking about a leader? It was kind of like Caleb Holt. If he had to commit after his Arkansas visit, it was going to be Arkansas. But he had a lot more lined up. NIL was going to come into play. Arkansas's come correct on initial offers. And then other teams immediately, when they hear about the strength of the visit and what Arkansas is offering, have done what they can to counter and maybe exceed it because they know the Calipari effect is something they're going to have to pay to overcome. They're not going to be able to do it with words. They're going to have to do it with money. And then Calipari has a limit as what he's going to do, as to what he's willing to do for any player. So we are wait and see mode, but something interesting happened. According to ESPN, the number 28 player in the country, 6'2" guard Marcus Johnson, out of the state of Ohio, he was committed to the Ohio State Buckeyes, decommitted yesterday. Now, I was on the road driving when all this stuff was shaking out. I was busy with the Arkansas game coverage and didn't get to put a lot into this. But since he has decommitted from Ohio State, there's a list that came out from Sam Kaiser and 24/7 Sports, or I don't know if it's part of the 247 Sports group or not. But he had a list of schools, about it looked like 15 or so high major schools that had already reached out to Marcus Johnson, and Arkansas is one of them. And you're thinking, well, that's kind of late to get in on it. Well, the guy was committed, and now he's uncommitted with the early period coming up. And there's a bunch of high majors, some blue bloods in there, and Arkansas is one of them that's made contact. But let's think about that for a second. So one of the thoughts might be, well, is Arkansas not in as great a shape with some of these guards that they're waiting on decisions for? I think it's multiple things. One is Calipari has identified and brought in a high-level point guard in every class. And you look back at year one, Boogie Flan. This past year, Darius Akuff Jr. Tay Kenny was the guy basically, facilitator first. Yes, he can score, but a facilitating lead guard that, Arkansas was on the outside looking in, and, it was always either Louisville and it ended up being Kansas. So Arkansas wasn't getting him and didn't get him. The other guys they're after at best are combo guards. They're not necessarily the kind of lead guard that Calipari has identified and brought in. Marcus Johnson could potentially be that. So for that reason alone, if you want to keep your trend going and continue to bring in lead guards, because look, we just talked about Arkansas's NBA draft prospects, upcoming in the summer. And there's 4 of them, and one of them is your lead guard, Darius Akuff Jr. DJ Wagner is a veteran at lead guard, but Calipari, regardless of having DJ, has added a high-level lead guard out of the high school ranks regardless. So it makes sense why Arkansas would pursue this player, and it's not as though when Arkansas was recruiting Tay Kenny at lead guard that it was going to be either get him or one of those other 5-star guards. They're recruiting with the idea of getting a lead guard plus one of those combos if they could have landed it that way. So we don't rule out guys like Brandon McCoy Jr., Jordan Smith Jr., or Caleb Holt just because those are kind of combo guys that can play on the ball some and maybe could initiate offense, because you were always recruiting them with the idea that if you could get a Tay Kenny, you would group that together. It wasn't either or kind of thing. Same thing here. It's not to say that there aren't other reasons why you won't necessarily land one of those other players, like other schools being in the lead, willing to pay more NIL, whatever, but it wouldn't be over something like this. This would be something where you're trying to, bring in a lead guard and the others are something different is the point. All right, we are 48 minutes in. Thank you for joining me on HogvilleNET Hoops. I'm your host, Kevin McPherson. If you've done it already, please hit subscribe, like, and share. It helps us out. Turn the notifications on. This is recruiting season. It gets real for Arkansas. That's what's up next. That's how we finish this. The Hogs open the regular season a week, now less than a week. Monday, November the 3rd. Southern out of the SWAC comes into Bud Walton Arena. Arkansas has had 2 better tests than what Southern should be able to provide. You never know, how you're going to perform. Are you going to be playing your best? Did you show up knowing the assignment? You're going to win regardless. That's a W. You'd like to see Arkansas start the game better against this team than Arkansas did against Memphis. The good news is you needed a poor start, probably, as benefiting you more so than just having smooth sailing for both halves. As fans, you want to see that because your heart rate doesn't go up and you don't feel like you're on a roller coaster when you didn't go to the amusement park to be on a roller coaster ride. You wanted to see an easy win. But that's not how basketball works, especially when you go on the road. Now, Arkansas will be at home against a team it should handle from start to finish. But I'm thinking more about what's up next in terms of the first week of the college basketball season. Because, you get Southern on Monday. Your next game's on Saturday on the road against a ranked Michigan State team. And I think facing some adversity on the road against Memphis was good for Arkansas for that very reason. They're going to play a better team, what should be a better team, I probably slept on Memphis a little bit because of all the new additions and guys I didn't think were going to necessarily bring all that much and who's their go-to. I mean, Doug McDaniel played a great floor game. He looked like the Doug McDaniel from Michigan 2 years ago, more so than he did the one that played at Kansas State last year. Volume score, hurt Arkansas from three, hurt on his drives and penetration, kickouts, things like that. Memphis had some nicer pieces than I thought, but Michigan State is a step up. And we'll see, how Arkansas responds to adversity on the road because there will be some, and they have a blueprint at least with this group together and some experience with that. It's so much better again than playing D2s in your exhibition season. Go like Calipari says, why aren't we playing these games? Well, you are, and the fact that Arkansas beat two worthy opponents in exhibition season. This is the first one in recent years where they've gone on the road for an exhibition game. Remember, Texas hammered Arkansas in the 22-23 season with the three 5-star one and dones and eventual Sweet 16 team loses by 30 at Texas. And then last year, Arkansas gives up a double-digit lead and loses to TCU in Fort Worth, ends up a Sweet 16 team. This team looks like, I'm just going to say it. I've said it a while. On paper and what I know about these players, it feels like it could be a Final Four kind of team. Now, what they've shown so far does not detract from that. I think it only reinforces it because the freshmen, I know these are exhibition games, but still, these freshmen are showing me things that tells me that they are on board with the middle part of what it's going to take. It's not that they're not making mistakes, not that they don't need a talking to, and not that there's going to be some head scratching moments, but for the most part, they're not in the dark searching and wondering and trying to find it. They're not out there getting their production either inefficiently or off the menu of what the team's trying to do. And it's kind of, yeah, they did this, but that's really not the identity and this kind of thing. No, they're blended in great. And they're Arkansas's best offensive players for certain. And right now, Malik Thomas has been Arkansas's best player, period, in exhibition season. So, all of that said, I think this Arkansas team's really dangerous. And, exhibition results aside, knowing in the past they've not been reliable on what's to happen next, I think these might be a little more reliable. And I also think there's Arkansas strengthening its chances to take on this brutal gauntlet in the non-conference, in addition to what we know is going to be probably the best league in the country again, in the SEC. I just think everything Calipari's done, how he built the roster, what he started implementing back in June and July, all the different things that have made this team what it is right now, this early, gives them a chance to deal with adversity when the bullets are real, when it's East Lansing, when it's a ranked team. I don't know how that's going to end up. Arkansas could take a loss. They took a loss on the in a neutral site last year in their second game in the week of the Saturday at the end of the first week of the college basketball season. I can't rule that out, but at the same time, I think this team this early is built. The retention's there, the freshmen, the additions out of the portal, the front line. Yes, depth is a question if somebody gets hurt, but if they stay healthy, I think every game is winnable. That's the point here. And this team, sky's the limit in terms of that chance to get to the Final Four. I really think it's got the potential to be Arkansas's best team since Nolan Richardson's early to mid '90s teams. He had more than one team, right? He had the Todd Daly, Mayberry, Oliver Miller group that was really, really good, elite at the college level, and then the team that eventually broke through, won a title, and got back to the title game. That run, this team has a chance to be Arkansas's best since then. All right, let's leave with that. Signing off now. I've gone longer than I have in a while, nearly 55 minutes. Thank you for joining me on HogvilleNET Hoops. I'm Kevin McPherson. Until next time, be great in all your endeavors. If something breaks, we'll come back on. Appreciate all of you. See you soon.